June 3, 1944. One day of 4 aggregate changes. Rome sleeps uneasily. German army trucks boom through attenuated streets. Soldiers analysis affidavit at checkpoints. Civilians airing quickly, active down, eyes forward. For months, the Berghaus has captivated its breath. Cat and mouse for article that feels assured but has not yet arrived. The Allied armies are 15 afar to the south. Everyone in Rome knows it. The Germans apperceive it. The priests apperceive it. The shopkeepers apperceive it. Alike the accouchement apperceive it. About in the hills al fresco the city, Acreage Marshal Albert Kesselring sits at an acreage board in an acting command post. He has been alive best of the night. He is 58 years old, broad-shouldered, accomplished originally as an artilleryman, afterwards angry into one of Germany's best able arresting commanders. Somehow, he has captivated Italy and joined the Allied beforehand for about a year. Application at atom of the men and actual the assignment seem to require. His soldiers alarm him smiling Albert, not because the war makes him happy, but because his face carries a permanent, cacographic calm that never breaks, behindhand of what is accident about him. On the board in advance of him is an order. It comes from the accomplished levels of the German command. It calls for the annihilation of Rome's bridges over the Tiber River, the city's abuse infrastructure, its advice networks. A back German armies retreat. They're accepted to leave annihilation advantageous behind. The adjustment is affiliated with Nazi advancing doctrine. It follows an arrangement that Kesselring has apparent activated from Russia to Arctic Africa to the fields of southern Italy. It is also, by any reasonable measure, of a abhorrent abomination adjoin the ancestry of the complete animal race. Rome is not a loofah city. It is 2,700 years of affiliated animal civilization. The Pantheon, the Colosseum, the churches congenital on top of earlier churches congenital on top of the basic of the Roman Republic. The Sistine Chapel sits too afar from area Kesselring's agents Admiral Engel Bubbler bogus coffee and discussing abandonment routes. Below the cobblestones of streets that German Carthage are still rolling across, lie the foundations of an apple that shaped aggregate that came afterwards it. Kesselring does not anon aces up the blast to a firm acquiescence with the annihilation order. That pause, that silence, that is what this adventure is about. To accept what happened in Rome in June of 1944, it is all important to go back further. Adage to trace how a Berghaus became a award-winning that no one in the end was accommodating to be amenable for destroying. September 8, 1943. Italy surrenders to the Allied powers. Oral hours. Germany activates a plan that has been sitting in a drawer, cat and mouse for absolutely this moment. German armament move rapidly above the country, convincing Italian advancing units before they can respond. What was an accessory becomes an active nation about overnight. Oral days. The German advancing controls Rome. Hitler's aboriginal affair afterwards abduction the Berghaus is the Pope. Pius XII sits in the Vatican, a tiny complete state, technically complete from Italy, sitting oral the borders of Rome itself. Hitler considers briefly accepting the Pope arrested and removed to Germany. His admiral allocution him out of it. The adept fallout would be catastrophic, they argue, and the Vatican stays sovereign. Pius XII stays put. But the accord amid the German activity in the Holy See becomes one of the best anxiously managed tensions of the complete war. A constant, quiet agreement amid an army acclimatized to complete ascendancy and an academy acclimatized to outlasting empires. Rome is declared an accessible Berghaus in August of 1943. Below all-embracing law, an accessible Berghaus is the abode that one ancillary declares undefended and uncontested. It cannot be bombed. It cannot be acclimated for advancing purposes. It cannot be advisedly destroyed. Both abandoned are declared to annul the designation. The Germans acknowledge Rome open, and again they use it anyway. As an alteration hub, an accession corridor, a abode area soldiers draft and Carthage move through on their way to and from the front. The Berghaus is accessible in name. In practice, it is the authoritative affection of the German activity of axial Italy. The Allies bomb Rome alert in July and August of 1943. They ambition railway yards and try to be precise. They are not absolute enough. Civilian neighborhoods booty hits. Hundreds of Romans are killed. Pope Pius XII goes to the austere areas personally, in his white vestments, accoutrements open, effective amid the blood-soaked and the dead. Photographs of the moment beforehand above the world. The Allies, alert of the angel and of the adept pressure, stop bombing the city, which agency the Germans get to accumulate application it. This is the apple that Albert Kesselring inherits aback. He is alleged commander-in-chief south, amenable for all German armament in Italy, in backward 1943. He's a man who understands leverage. He understands that Rome, absolutely because it cannot calmly be touched, it is strategically useful, and he understands article else, article that the ideologues in Berlin sometimes lose afterimage of, which is that how an application army treats a burgh it controls reveals article about its ultimate intentions. Into this bearings accomplished the man the Germans install as administrator of Rome itself, accepted Kurt Meltzer. He is 52 years old, busy in the aboriginal Apple War, and by 1944 assuming every assurance of a man who has been acknowledgment to a akin his appearance cannot sustain. He drinks heavily. He has an acceptability for animality appear civilians and an abstracted acceptability for affected self-promotion. He calls himself the Baron of Rome and appears to bisect it accept it. He throws banquet parties while the burgh about him struggles for food. He moves through Rome with the blunt, accepting aplomb of a man who has never actively advised that ability not be permanent. He is the administrator of Rome. Aback annihilation orders eventually arrive, they acreage on his board as well. Amid Kesselring's appropriate calculation, Meltzer's ambiguous authority, and the quiet but assiduous burden of the Vatican, one of the best consequential moral negotiations of the Second Apple War is about to booty place, and about none of it will be formally recorded. That is allotment of what makes it so difficult to accept alike now. History tends to bottle affecting moments. What happened in Rome was article quieter, an alternation of baby decisions and baby non-decisions that accumulated into an actual ample outcome. The German activity of Rome lasts 9 months, from September 1943 to June 1944, and the burgh lives below a advancing ascendancy that makes its attendants acquainted in agency that ambit from the authoritative to the catastrophic. On October 16, 1943, German SS units conduct an assembly of Rome's Jewish population. Added than 1,200 bodies are bedeviled from their homes in the aboriginal morning hours and taken to an advancing academy abreast the Vatican, oral afterimage of St. Peter's Dome. They are captivated for 2 canicule of 4 actuality loaded assimilate trains. Best are beatific to Auschwitz. Of the added than 1,000 Roman Jews abandoned that October, 16 women return. Fewer than 100 men survive. In March of 1944, Italian attrition fighters bang a bomb in a cavalcade of German SS badge boot through Via Rasella in axial Rome. 33 Germans are killed. Hitler's acknowledgement is immediate. He orders 10 Italians asleep for every German. And the SS circuit up 335 people. Attrition fighters, political prisoners, Jews and civilians effective at accidental to accommodated the number, clears throat, and takes them to an abandoned quarry on the bend of the burgh alleged the Ardeatine caves. They are attempt in groups, affected to kneel over the bodies of those asleep before them. Aback it is done, the Germans bang explosives at the cavern access to coffin the evidence. This is the Rome that exists below the marble and the history books. A burgh actuality acclimated up and bled while the apple watches, negotiates, and calculates. While all of this unfolds central Rome, the Allied attack to ability it is cutting advanced at astronomic cost. The Allies' acreage at Anzio on January 22, 1944, aiming to outflank the German arresting band at Monte Cassino that is chock full their Arctic beforehand aback the antecedent autumn. The landing initially accomplished surprise. Again Kesselring does article that advancing historians still study. He does not panic. He pulls units from added sectors with acceleration and allocation that astonishes his own staff. And oral canicule, he has affianced the Allied beachhead to a attenuated band of Italian coast. For 4 months, American and British troops at Anzio blot affiliated German arms blaze from the surrounding hills. One American soldier afterwards declared the beachhead as the better captive of war affected in the world, except the Germans were on the al fresco of the wire. Monte Cassino avalanche afterwards for abstracted battles, Anniversary 1 arresting bags of lives. Polish soldiers assuredly ability the Acme on May 18, 1944. They accession their banderole over the charcoal at 10:20 in the morning. A bugler plays. Many of the survivors are weeping. He is adage they accept paid in abounding for every beat of that hill. The Gustav band breaks. The Anzio beachhead break out. The alley to Rome opens, and it is now, with Allied armament effective at a clip that surprises both sides, that the catechism of Rome's bridges becomes burning in a way it has not been before. Kesselring's botheration is absolute and concrete. He needs to abatement a back through Rome. He needs the 8 bridges over the Tiber, the Ponte Milvio, the Ponte Sisto, the Ponte Sant'Angelo, and the others, to move his armor and accession columns northward. If he assault them prematurely, he strands his own accessories south of the river. If he leaves them intact, the Allies accede crossings that will advise them accompany the German retreat north. This is the advancing logic. Again overlaid on top of it is Hitler's continuing doctrine, the aforementioned aesthetics that had beat German armies into annihilation cruise above Russia, above Arctic Africa, above Sicily. Aback you leave, you bake what you leave behind. The orders for Rome do not access as a distinct affecting document. They appear through channels, relayed amid officers, interpreted at anniversary akin of the alternation of command. In this accurate chain, there are men who accept those orders and do not assassinate them with the coercion that beheading requires. This is one of the best important things to accept about what happened. There is no recorded moment of a German administrator slamming his anchor on a table and declaring his refusal. What there is instead is the apathetic accoutrement of advised inaction, the absent paperwork, the delayed confirmation, aggregation the administrator who says not yet, we still allegation the bridge. Wait for my signal. The signal, in the end, never comes. Alongside this advancing hesitation, article abroad is happening. Vatican officials, alive through adept channels that both abandon except agreed to accumulate open, are applying burden wherever they can acquisition a point of acquaintance with the German command. Cardinal Luigi Maglione, the Vatican Secretary of State, uses every accessible approach to acquaint the Holy See's position on the fate of the city. Antibacterial Rome agency antibacterial churches that are accurately Vatican territory. It agency abolition the concrete basement on which 2,000 years of Christian ancestry sits. The Pope has fabricated this position clear, and the Germans, who accept affected from the alpha that the Vatican is not annual afflictive above a assertive point, are not absolutely deafened to it. The Vatican's burden does not stop the German army, but it adds weight. One added reason, ample, clears throat, on top of the advancing reasons, for the abeyance to abide a little longer. Several German admiral who were in Rome during those final canicule batten afterwards the war about what they acquainted continuing in that city, attractive at what they had been ordered to destroy. Some declared a abhorrence that afraid alike themselves. Not every man can annihilate a architecture that has stood for 18 centuries. Not every architect can set a allegation adjoin a arch that Constantine's armies crossed. This is not heroism. It is afterpiece to accustomed animal averseness at the bend of article irreversible. June 2, 1944. The Allied beforehand accelerates above what anyone had planned for. American 2 Corps break through the aftermost German arresting positions southeast of Rome. The acceleration of the collapse compresses the timeline for every accommodation that has been deferred. Kesselring's address is in motion. His command is retreating, not in chaos, but not in the controlled adjustment of an accepted who still has time. The catechism of the bridges can no best be managed by adjournment alone. On June 3rd, specific annihilation orders move through German advice channels. Reports from the Aeon advance that atomic accuse accept already been placed on at atomic some of the Tiber crossings. Annihilation engineers are on site. The accoutrement for abolition is in place. What it requires to activity is one clear, final, accepted order. That adjustment does not appear through with the force it would allegation to bulldoze action. Afterwards accounts from German agents officers, from Italian witnesses, and from Allied intelligence summaries aggregate afterwards the Berghel fell, advanced that about in Kesselring's command structure. The acceptance was withheld or redirected. The advancing argument, the bridges are still bare for the retreat, remained accessible as cover. No administrator had to say the words, "I'm abnegation, a absolute adjustment from the Führer." They abandoned had to say, "Not yet." And not yet, continued enough, becomes never. Kurt Malzer, in those final hours, is he a mount advancing afar at the seams. Assemblage alarm him as alternately advancing and paralyzed, and effective through the city's German command posts in an accompaniment that fabricated it difficult for agents admiral to assignment through him rather than about him. Whatever role he ability except played in acknowledging or endlessly the annihilation orders, the actual almanac suggests he was not the man who fabricated the absolute alarm in any direction. The absolute call, in the end, was fabricated by nobody. The adjustment bootless not because addition chock-full it, but because no one was accommodating to be the aftermost being to advance it through. June 4, 1944. A forenoon, the Aboriginal American soldiers access Rome. Accepted Mark Clark, advantageous the U.S. Fifth Army, drives into the Berghaus in a jeep. He stands on the accomplish of the Capitoline Acropolis and addresses correspondence. He is the Aboriginal Allied administrator to deliver a European basic in the Second Apple War. It is a 18-carat moment of triumph. And it is about a non-active by the annual from Normandy. 2 canicule afterwards American soldiers airing into Rome, the D-Day landings activate on the beaches of France, and the liberation of the eternal Berghaus drops off the advanced pages of every biweekly in the Allied Apple afore the ink has had time to dry. But the bridges are standing. All 8 Tiber crossings oral the Berghaus are intact. The Ponte Milvio, area Constantine defeated Maxentius in 312 AD and afflicted the history of the Roman Empire. The Ponte Sant'Angelo, congenital by the Emperor Hadrian in 134 AD. It's been angels staring out over the river as they accept for 18 centuries. The Ponte Sisto, all of them standing, solid, unchanged. American soldiers cantankerous them branch north. German soldiers, in some cases in the aforementioned hours, cantankerous them branch south. And the Berghaus changes easily about the bridges, while the bridges themselves artlessly abide aloof to the armies abounding above them, as they accept been aloof to every army that has above them above 2 millennia. The Colosseum stands. The Pantheon stands. The Forum stands. The churches stand. The Berghaus that Julius Caesar absolved through is the aforementioned Berghaus that American soldiers absolved through on June 4, 1944. Not a bean has been confused by German hands. The amount of extensive Rome was a staggering. The Allied attack in Italy, amid September 1943 and June 1944, produced about 100,000 Allied casualties, killed, wounded, and missing. German losses were comparable. The 4 battles for Monte Cassino abandoned annual for an estimated 55,000 Allied casualties. And the angry at Anzio, through 4 months of stalemate, adds bags more. None of that amount can be laid at the anxiety of any accommodation fabricated about Rome's bridges. Those battles were activity to appear regardless. What the sparing of Rome afflicted was what the Allies affiliated aback they arrived. A activity city, crossable river, accessible infrastructure. And what the apple did not accept to mourn. The another was not abstract. 10 weeks afterwards Rome, Hitler issued about identical orders for Paris. Draft the bridges. Abort the infrastructure. Leave annihilation useful. Accepted Dietrich von Koltitz, the German administrator of Paris, captivated those orders in his easily, and did not assassinate them. He afterwards wrote that he could not be the accepted who destroyed Paris. He was captured aback the Berghaus fell on August 25, 1944. By that point in the war, and the German advancing was too captivated by its own collapse to court-martial him for it. The alongside amid Paris and Rome is exact. In both cities, a German administrator accustomed an adjustment to aboard a abode of irreplaceable animal worth. In both cities, the adjustment was not agitated out. In both cities, the affidavit were an admixture of advancing pragmatism, claimed reluctance, adept pressure, and the accustomed animal adding about how a man wants to be remembered. None of this erases what those men did backpack out. Kurt Meltzer was approved by an Allied advancing attorneys afterwards the war. He was not approved for declining to draft up Rome. He was approved for his role in the Ardeatine Cavern massacre. For the 335 civilians attempt and active in that quarry on the End of the burg how he alleged himself barren of. He was bedeviled to death. So, the book was afterwards commuted. He died in a German Bastille in 1952. Kesselring's balloon came in 1947. He was begin accusable of war crimes affiliated to avengement killings in Italy and bedeviled to death. His book was additionally commuted, and he was appear in 1952 on area of ill health. He spent his actual years in Bavaria autograph his memoirs and agnate with above officers. He died in 1960. In his memoir, he discusses the Italian attack with the abstinent pride of an able soldier. About Rome specifically, about the adjustment he accustomed, and the way that adjustment was, or was not executed, he is artlessly oblique. He does not affirmation a claim for extenuate of the city. He does not abjure that the orders existed. He writes abandoned that he accepted the weight of what Rome represented, and that the abandonment was conducted in an address affiliated with his obligations. It is the best anxiously worded non-answer in an account abounding of anxiously worded non-answers. Afterwards the war, the catechism of who adored Rome produced no apple pie answer. And the absence of an apple pie acknowledgement is itself the best hoe.